This is the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast, hosted by David Charlton, and you're listening to this podcast to help you build your own mental toughness, or so that you can support other people or your clients better. Either way, you will learn more about developing this plastic personality trait that all but guarantees that you will perform better and lead a more prosperous life. Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time of day it is for you. In today's episode, I'm going to be talking about motivation. Well, demotivation actually, which is linked to the commitment measure of mental toughness. And whether you play your sport at a lower level or at the highest international level, professional level perhaps, you'll likely find that your motivation is reduced at some point. Why? Because you're human. And demotivation sometimes comes along after a poor run of form for you or for the team. Maybe you've been injured, or you've just simply had a performance plateau and your levels dropped off for a little bit, so you then find yourself out of the team. So, what can you do to help yourself? Well, one thing is to recognise that motivation and confidence are and can be interlinked. If you consider yourself at your best, I'm guessing you've got bags of energy. You've got lots of enthusiasm. You vigorously want to attack your goals. So one thing you can do is create some small challenges. Small challenges based on currently where you're at, on how you're currently performing. And you can keep these very, very basic if you wish. It's a great way to get those motivational juices flowing, and something I tend to do with almost every client I work with. We're going to start by considering what one of your best performances look like. So your job would be to pause this podcast episode and to list a range of qualities that are personal to you. So feel free to include tactical, technical, physical, lifestyle, as well as psychological qualities. An example would be a football player, a goalkeeper that I've supported in the past. When he considered what his best performances looked like, he considered being dominant on crosses, being brave with one-to-ones, loud and clear in his communication. He was in the present moment. He was confident with his feet. He showed great body language. He went to bed early the evening before he performed. He had supportive coaching. He felt energized and really agile. He'd mentally prepare using visualization. Some of his best performances too were on the back of good weeks training, real quality training. He also mentioned how clean sheets in previous matches filled him with confidence too going into games and some of these best performances. We could go on, and I could bore you with all of the detail. He went on further with my support to come up with over 25 qualities. Next, we looked to see if he could categorize these different qualities into psychological, technical, tactical, physical, or lifestyle. Sometimes there was some crossover. And this then links to some advice from world-famous entrepreneurial figure, American businessman and investor Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is famous for lots and lots of things. One of the things he's famous for is his goal-setting approach. He calls it a 25-5 rule. So he lists 25 things that you want to accomplish, and this would be in the next week, and then he looks to whittle it down to the most important 5 goals. And I really like this approach. Personally, I've noticed an awful lot with my clients and from different conversations that people can often get overwhelmed with goal setting, with the number of goals. And really what we're wanting to do here is create some good habits. So I recommend this approach of whittling down this list down to 5. In this case, we're thinking about the 5 most important qualities that are connected with your best performances. And one method, one way of doing this to reduce your list down from 25 plus qualities to 5, you could simply rate on a scale of 1 to 10 how important each quality is for you to then produce your best performance. So 1 would be not important, 10 would be very, very important. So what we're doing here is identifying meaningful qualities to you, not your coach, not your teammates, not your parents, nor your sports psychologist. These are meaningful qualities to you and you only. And what you can do now to get yourself out of this demotivated feeling is, again, to rate these 5 qualities on a scale of 1 to 10 in terms of where you currently sit. So taking into account recent performances. And at this point, you need to be thinking about what it is that you need to be working on during the next week, the next 2 weeks, the next month to really impact your performance levels. So the goalkeeper whittled down his 25 to 5, and we came up with communication, organising teammates. We had getting to bed early, bravery when coming for crosses, mental rehearsal with visualisation, and being confident with the ball at his feet. And these 5 areas, they were checked and rechecked, where I asked him lots of good questions about whether they really would make an impact in the short term with regard to his performances. And as a result, he did actually go on to change one. He removed communication and he replaced it with rest and recovery, as he admitted his energy levels had been low. His flexibility as well was in question, as recently, due to his mood, due to poor performances, he hadn't necessarily put the time in to do his stretching exercises and foam rollering and things like that. So he felt that this would have a bigger impact than focusing on his communication. The communication side he felt actually would just automatically improve if he focused his attention on in the coming weeks on these 5 areas. When doing this exercise, a few messages I'd like to get across. I just want to make it clear that this is a short-term exercise. It's a slump-busting exercise, if you like, which is solely focused on the next few weeks ahead of you. And for those of you who are familiar with sports psychology, you've probably guessed it, this is really a form of performance profiling. It's going to help you really appreciate your strengths, as well as highlighting some areas that you can improve upon. We're not done there though. It's vital that the next step that you take is about action. So in this case, action planning. And looking at some smart principles of goal setting can really help you. Going back to the recovery side, which I talked about earlier, so the goalkeeper actually rated himself as a 3 in terms of what he was doing about his recovery. So his action plan, if we're thinking about specific, measurable, attainable, realistic and time-bound goals, was simply, number 1, was he was going to focus for 20 minutes per day, every day, on stretches. So that ticks all of those smart principle boxes. And he also had a second goal linked to this as well, which was pretty simple. It was a case of, I'm going to speak to my trainer tomorrow to get some specific exercises to follow and to guide me with my stretching exercises. Again, that is specific, measurable, attainable, realistic and time-bound. The action planning, well, this takes us from thinking about things, from trying to hype ourselves up and get ourselves out of this demotivated state, to being motivated, to being energized to chase our goals, which takes us quite nicely to the commitment measure of mental toughness, where our job is to act on our promises to ourselves. So, I'm going to encourage you to do the exercises and to take massive action. That's what's going to change things for you, as well as having a positive impact on your confidence. And on the theme of sticking to promises, I've mentioned in some previous episodes recently that I'm working towards putting an educational resource or resources together for football enthusiasts in the shape of footballers, football coaches and parents. Well, the first of these resources will be coming to you direct on the podcast next Tuesday. That's right, from next Tuesday for 10 weeks, on a Tuesday, I'll be sharing one challenge footballers or soccer players, coaches or parents might face with some solutions. The episodes are going to be simply 5 minutes long, so quite short and sweet and simple. Something that I've wanted to do for a long time, but due to the demands on my time, I haven't been able to. So I'm really excited to be launching this next Tuesday. Fridays will still include content, mainly in the form of interviews or short bites from previous interviews. My hope is that the series of 10 episodes is going to re-energize the podcast and provide us with more listeners, different listeners, who'll find the podcast insightful, and it'll have a positive difference on their lives. Until Tuesday, when the first of these episodes does come out, I really hope you have a good few days. Enjoy. If you enjoyed this episode of the Demystifying Mental Toughness podcast with David Charlton, do check out my website, sport-excellence.co.uk, and my online sport psychology resources. The Sport-Excellence website has essential resources for anyone looking to build their own mental toughness or the mental toughness of their athletes or teams, or if you want to achieve peak performance more often or optimal functioning. The Sport Excellence website has everything you need to keep moving forward and thrive. So go on, head over to sport-excellence.co.uk to find out more.